hit like and subscribe. You're watching the Marc Lamont Hill official YouTube channel.
Good morning, everyone. So good to be back with you on this new episode of Ascending. I am your very happy host, April R. Silver. So happy to be back with you. We are doing another conversation on Black fatherhood because that first conversation we had, about 2 weeks ago, was absolutely explosive. So we are doing part 2 of Blood and Bond, the real Black fatherhood conversation. And I'm happy to say that we have guests from the anthology, Be a Father to Your Child, just like last time. But you all have let us know for like 2 weeks straight how soul touching and important that conversation is and was. So, as promised, we're doing part 2 with the same topic, but a different group of men. So, we're going to get to that conversation into our very esteemed panel in just a little bit. But I wanted to first say thank you to everyone who's watching. You know, we come weekly every Saturday at 11 a.m. Eastern on the Marc Lamont Hill YouTube channel. So shout out to the Marc Lamont Hill team here on YouTube, and then also to my team, the A team, for the consistent support always for all of these 23 episodes. We appreciate you, and we appreciate the audience and the viewers. You all are doing an amazing job of letting us know that you appreciate this show. So wherever you're watching from, we have some diehards, I know. Wherever you're watching from across the country, thank you, thank you. We know we have some consistent international viewers as well, so thank you for that. So let's jump right in. Oh, wait, my standard. If you are on Twitter, thank you for watching, but do us a favor and come on over from Twitter, from Marc's Twitter channel over to YouTube. That's really, really important, and is your way to demonstrate that you support this independent Black media channel. So I'm going to give you those reminders throughout the show. But in the meantime, tell your people to watch, because we got a big show. We're going to jump right into bookmark. Now, it's got to be obvious, right? We're talking on about Black fatherhood. So the bookmark is Be a Father to Your Child. Again, the most important thing, one of the most important things I've ever done in my entire life was edit that anthology. It came out in 2008. 24 Black men, fathers and sons, talking about the real deal, what it means to contemplate fatherhood and family and love. It's an amazing anthology. Again, some of those people from the book are here, but this is what I didn't say last time. The book, shout out to Lauren Harris, who was at the Ford Foundation at the time that picked me to do this anthology, and a whole bunch of other across the country. We got to make sure that everybody's mic is turned off. Somebody is giving their affirmations by coughing. But what I didn't say last time about this book is that the context for the book was that all of the people, the contributors that I personally chose, had to address this responsible fatherhood theme, had to address this to debunk the myth that Black men don't give a damn about their families. The criteria is, yes, that's the topic, that's what you need to address, but you need to do it in the context of hip hop. In what way has hip hop, as the culture, positively affected your view on manhood, on family, on fatherhood in particular? That was the framework. And I didn't say that last time. So when you buy the book, hint, hint, when you buy the book, it's still available. We want you to buy it from African American Literature bookclub.com or Uncle Bobby's. You'll see that that's the thread. Once you buy it and read it, that's the thread that is on all 24 essays and poems and interviews that are in this anthology. So just so you know, this is definitely and purposefully a hip hop context from which we're talking about fatherhood. So I forgot to say that before. Again, all of the work was done in 2007. The book came out in 2008. And about 10 years after that, there's a group of men that started the Dad Gang. And so that media outlet is the Black media shout out. The Dad Game, I think they started around 2000 to 2017, 2018. And I discovered them on IG several years ago. And they have been doing an amazing job as a collective of Black men who say to the world, we give a damn about fatherhood, about Black fatherhood in particular. So their IG is, as you can see on the screen, if you're listening and not watching, the Dad Gang is on IG as the Dad Gang. That's their tag for Facebook and Instagram. Amazing images of fathers and their sons, and just very much standing up and showing up, as Cheo talked to us about showing up about 2 weeks ago when he was here on this topic. So shout out to them and all the work that they've been doing. And folks, you all already know Black men have been advocating for themselves for years, way before my book, way before any of the books that you might already be aware of. So I'm just happy to be a part of the conversation that spotlighted that Black men really do give a damn about their families. So definitely check them out. Go buy the book wherever. Go buy it at Uncle Bobby's. I know the link is going to be in the chat before the show is over, but buy the book and support this great work. I want to jump right into the conversation. So we got 5 amazing Black men who are going to be just in conversation. I want to welcome to the stage first Mo Beasley. Mo Beasley is coming to the stage now. If you all are regulars, you saw Mo last week on Black music, independent scholar that he is around Black music. We're going to talk about his journey and what his contribution was to the book. So welcome back, Mo. Can we hear? I cannot hear you.
Thank you, Dr. Silver.
I was like, am I bugging? So welcome back. You have an amazing story. We're going to get into all of that. Next, we want to bring to the stage is Dion. Let's welcome Dion Chavis. I got to say this about Dion as he comes to the stage. Now, like I said, the anthology is 25 pieces of great work, most of them essays. And it was a wonderful experience editing, not just the copy editing, but talking to the guys about what they were really trying to convey. And it was a job to edit that much content. But the thing about Dion, and Dion, whether you know it or not, I always say this about you. Your essay was the one I did not have to edit. It was,
Wow.
I mean, like little edits. But with some of the other guys, I had to dig deep. Like it was like therapy sessions for the guys and me, for some of the men. But yours was pretty much flawless. You know what I mean? And so I don't know if I've ever shared that. And I've watched you come on to become this amazing, powerful, impactful advocate for fatherhood ever since then. So thank you so much for all that you do. But I just had to say that part because I found it really, I didn't know you from a can of paint. Like you came to me recommended from Thisha and Shaun. I didn't know you from you're the only one who I didn't know. Well,
Right.
one of them. So that was delightful that I didn't have to do any edits. So thank you.
Well,
So
thank you. I appreciate you.
Yeah, very much so. Very much so, fam. Let's bring on Lasana Hotep. Lasana O Hotep is coming in from some part of the country, world traveler that you are. Thank you, sir, for joining us.
Good morning, sis. Thanks for having me.
Yes. You know, you always bring a smile to my face because I know people don't even know what they're in for with these conversations that are just about to happen. So we're going to go in just a minute. Lasana, your piece, which I reread everybody's pieces. So I can't wait for you to talk about your freestyle fatherhood.
Absolutely.
Yes. Let's welcome.
I'm joining you from Dallas today. I'm in Dallas, Texas.
Okay, I didn't want to be like, what part of the world are you in right now? But world traveler that you are. So thank you for joining from Texas, for sure. The next person that's coming to the stage is Aaron, who is actually a producer here. So when you all hear me talking about my producers, my guys, or whatever, Aaron is one of them. I've known him for a million years. Welcome, Aaron. Now you get to talk to the world and not just push buttons from behind the scenes, right?
Yes. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Yours was a very touching essay as well, talking about your father. And Yeah, the awkwardness there. So we'll get into all of that. And then the last person that we have joining us for this distinguished panel is Shaun Neblett.
Peace, everyone.
Welcome, Shaun.
Peace, peace.
Hey.
You are a smart man in and of yourself, but you're extra smart because you're married to one of my dear friends and mentees. That lets me know just how smart you are. And you have Harriet Tubman in the background. So we're about to be blessed. Thank you, Shaun. So we're going to get into all the work that you do as a father. Let me see. Shaun, you weren't a father when the book came out.
Right.
Lasana, you weren't. Dion, you were. Aaron, no. And Mo, you were. But Mo, you've had some family expansion, since the book came out in 2008. So everybody, if you're watching, you are watching part 2 of the Blood and Bond, the real Black fatherhood conversation with our distinguished panel. This is who we all have today. But 2 weeks ago, watch part 1. If you're watching on Twitter, come on over. Y'all know the drill. Come on over to YouTube. It really does help if you watch from YouTube. So guys, oh my gosh, we have so much to talk about. We have a lot to talk about. I want to start with you, Shaun, because you revealed a lot. I want to talk about your contributions and then some broader questions around fatherhood, right? I want to give people a little bit of what you wrote about before we expand into a bigger conversation. So that's going to be the flow. But Shaun, I want to start with you because in your essay, you shared with the world the relationship with your father, who was addicted to alcohol, right? You were very honest about that journey. You were very honest about how close you all were, and this tension as things grew older with the problem that he was struggling with, but also artistically this tension between jazz and hip hop, right? And how you weren't the hip hop head growing up until later. We'll talk about the plays you've done around hip hop, but talk to us about, if you would, Shaun, about that journey from being so enamored with your dad, but also dealing with two different expressions of him in your life when everything was cool, and then how things were different when he would drink. Can you talk about that a little bit and how that impacted you as a child?
Sure. Thanks for having me today, and peace to all the brothers here. It's good to see everybody. I always enjoy when I'm able to get in, connect with the brothers from this project that April gave birth to. So my essay, it really focused on how my father impacted me subconsciously. And in the essay, I wrote about my father. He's from Panama. And my father is a major influence in my life. I remember the first song that my father played was Mercy, 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 which is a jazz standard by Cannonball Adderley. And that song became a major influence in my life and my connection to jazz music. And it's weird, but I sort of followed a lot of what he said about music. Like one time he said, this was in the 80s when Miles Davis was playing a lot of electric music. He said, I used to like Miles Davis, but, now he's playing a lot of this carnival jazz because, he's not playing with acoustic albums. So anything my father said about music was like the word. So I never listened to Miles Davis, and people would ask me about him. And I was like, yeah, he plays that carnival jazz, not even knowing I'm talking about one of the greatest musicians of the world. And now Miles Davis is my favorite jazz musician. One time, so my father, when he lost his job, he was laid off. He did drink more, and this was more so during my middle school years. And what April is talking about, the change that and dynamic that would happen in our relationship. My father wasn't the type that would drink and, start beating my mother like Mr. in The Color Purple or anything like that. But he would become very, he's already an introverted man, but he would become even more introverted or more towards himself or just more withdrawn from the family. So when those moments happened, I didn't really know how to internalize them. I guess that in retrospect, it created some very lonely moments and moments of not really understanding why he would make the choice to relieve himself in that manner. Now, as a 47-year-old person, I do have different perspectives on where he was at and why he chose to medicate that way. And one thing that was affected was my connection to hip hop music, because he very clearly, he thought my brother and I were nerds. I mean, that's just what it is. He didn't think we were cool,
Right.
It came out in moments, I can't even shy away from it. And that's just the thing. Like, I'm an artist, I'm a playwright. My father, I don't know how he associates those things. He appreciated me, but everyone has different levels of connection. So I think he definitely wanted me to be like a hip hop head, and I just sort of shied away from it in those years of my life. So
Because your interpretation at the time as a child was because you liked jazz, your father, and you didn't lean toward hip hop as hip hop was coming of age. Your interpretation was that he thought, like you said, you were nerd, you weren't tough, and he got excited when he got a glimpse of you listening to hip hop. So you, like you said, subconsciously was like, "Yo, I'm paraphrasing. My father thinks I'm not cool, I'm not tough, or whatever." So that had an impact on you as a young man coming of age. How did you reconcile that? Because I got the impression in reading that hurt, right? That your father didn't think that you were gonna grow up to be what he wanted you to be. Like, how did you
Right.
reconcile that with your feelings?
April, I think the father is the first example of manhood. I was really blessed in my 20s to have close friends, because then other things start to parent you. Some people say it's your social environment. Some people are religious or faith-based environment. Your teachers, your mentors, and for a lot of brothers out here, their friends are the ones who father them, or fill in those gaps where that might have been left open by your father. So I had some friends in my 20s, Black males, that they were all hip hop heads, and I would learn from them. And they really schooled me in hip hop culture, so much so that I developed a strong love for it. The story that I reference in the essay is, my father was drinking one night and I played some hip hop, and I mean, he literally ran out the bathroom and was like, "You're listening to hip hop?" Like, it was like,
That's a compliment, right?
this guy could never listen to hip hop. You know what I mean? And things like that. Those soft sort of implications, they impact young men. So yeah, there was definitely certain feelings that, in figuring myself out, I had to identify how to grasp all of that.
Had to grasp all that. Yeah, yeah. I want to use that as a segue to Mo, right? So Mo, thank you, Shaun. Thank
Yeah.
you. In your piece, you became a grandfather at what, 36? 36, 37, 38? Yeah, 36. And the thing about your talking about grappling with stuff, your mother and father had you when they were 17. You had your first child with your girlfriend at the time when you were 17.
Yep.
And then your daughter, your firstborn, had a child when she was 19. So you talked about this generational thing of impoverished families, Black families, growing up in the hood, essentially, and this cycle. And so when we talk about, Shaun just mentioned reconciliation and, grappling with things, you were outraged, as you say in the essay, when your daughter at 19, who had made big victories academically, honor roll and everything, from a troubled, she was not doing so great. Then she came to live with you, and then she was doing great. And then she went to Spelman. And at the end of her first year, she got pregnant, and you were outraged. How did you reconcile that? Just briefly, so we can get to the others. Talk to us a little bit about that journey.
I'm laughing at myself. That's why I'm chuckling, because you get over yourself. Because first, my oldest is in the chat, the live chat. So I've been watching the chat. So good morning, baby girl. So that's wonderful to have her. We probably should. There she is.
Her baby picture too.
So that's actually my grandbaby. That's the G baby. So the
wow, she looks just like her. And please, hey Kari.
So I'm laughing at myself because back then, yes, I was outraged, and now she's blessed me with 2 grandbaby girls who are wonderful, who are bright, who are brilliant, and I adore. And we get over ourselves. And I got over myself. But back then, yes, I was outraged. So I was so outraged. I think I had an old couch I was selling or giving away. And, when my baby girl first told me she was expecting, and I was did what daddy should do. You be cool and you say, okay, well, and I knew her boyfriend, so I knew who my son-in-law was going to be, and they were high school sweethearts. So I was cool on the phone, and all right, well then, we're gonna talk to your mom, and we're gonna, we'll work it out. I got up that phone and I destroyed that couch. I just broke it into a million pieces. I was just like,
wow.
All this work we put in. And so, and it's funny because I was telling my youngest, Raina, who's now 16. So I have three daughters and 2 granddaughters. So all this girl energy, and yeah, man, what was the question?
No, the how did you reconcile and grapple with? Because I mean, you kind of said it, right? You started off me doing the setup. You were like, you get over yourself, right? So that was like rage in the moment. The breaking the cycle is what you was concerned about. And just, I guess, maybe not having so much faith in the future for your daughter, right? And that was your firstborn, but I know, just because I know you well, there's been some maturity, some maturation on your part, as you showed up for all of your daughters in phenomenal ways, as in often cases as a single dad, so yeah, the maturity helps. But you go ahead.
It just takes time. You grow, you learn, and you listen. My favorite poem that I father by is Khalil Gibran's On Children. And, your children are not your children. They come through you, but they are not from you. And though they are with you, they don't belong to you. Give them your love and not their thoughts, but they have their own thoughts. So my baby girl has her own journey. So the biggest thing is how I got past it was to remember that, to be like, and have some elders around me to go, hey, like you were trying to exercise some family generational whatever. That's my ego. That's my issue. That ain't hers. That ain't her path. And so that's how you get over it. And it doesn't happen overnight. Like, it's taken time. And she and I have had our battles, and we've had our conflicts, and we've had, too much time where we weren't as connected. But that's the journey, I think, in all families. We have those times. So time heals, and check your ego. That's how you get over it.
That helps. And maybe some talk therapy as well.
Oh, a lot of therapy. Ooh, a lot of therapy. Oh yeah, therapy. Yeah, I'm about that therapy life, because that's who really checks you. Your therapists are like, hey, like, didn't you say this your favorite poem? Didn't you say?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So let's. I want to move over to Aaron, and after Aaron, we're going to go to Lasana and close out this part with Dion. But Aaron, one of the things that you talked about is your relationship with your father, and how he was there in the beginning, and then he was away from the family, but then would come back, and all of a sudden, this man who had not been a part of your daily living, you were supposed to show respect to. And you couldn't even fathom calling him dad or whatever, but you knew you couldn't call him by his first name, right?
Yeah.
So all of that, and it was a stark contrast, which was kind of symbolic. You were compared to your father, who was 6'4" and like
Yeah.
a big man, and you were like, what did you say, 4 foot nothing? So it's these oppositional images and energy or whatever. But you had come to be let down by your father, by him breaking his promises, as you say in the book. So you had some reconciliation to do as well, because there was some owning up of his mistakes and broken promises that cleared a path. Can you give us a little bit about that, and what helped make that relationship a little bit repaired?
Yes. First, I even have to thank the anthology, because I take my father to task. And when we presented the book and we actually read, when he first read the book, he was supportive, which was shocking to me. But my father came back into my life in my early teens. So, I'm 5'8" now. So I was 4 foot nothing, probably was 100 pounds. And he was always a physically imposing person to anyone. And he had the personality to match. So at times, as you mentioned, I would call him Hank, and even I had the knowledge to know that was cringeworthy, calling him by his first name, but he just wasn't dad. And it took a couple of years for me to get there. But the relationship was really difficult. As you said, he broke several promises when he did come back into my life. But he actually ended up coming down with colon cancer. And that was basically the beginning of our journey to healing. And it's weird that this anthology even played an even greater part in that, because I expected some defensiveness. I was scared for him to read what I wrote about him. I wasn't kind. And I wasn't kind because you pushed me, April, as you talked about how you had to nurture people.
I remember.
You were like, you're not being honest, Aaron. You're not going there. And I went there, through your guidance. And it was a healing journey. And it was a journey. My father's no longer with us. He passed in 2013 from colon cancer. So it was a cathartic experience. And the healing was a cathartic experience. And I think we don't realize how young our parents really are. They just seem like they're old. They seem like, in our brain as children, they're 50 years old.
Right.
But they're really not. They're really young people trying to figure out life. And it's only through our experience of adulthood that we can then give grace to, wow, my father was only 27, 28. I was a knucklehead at 27, 28 years old, that type of thing. So I totally glad I went through the writing experience. I'm glad that we healed, and I'm glad that we had the time to actually be father and son. Things were never perfect. This isn't fairyland, but we got to a place where we were able to love and just be father and son.
Yeah. Yeah, I thought it was really, and we'll go on to Lasana in a minute, but your father, whatever type of man has a health issue and finds out that he has colon cancer and goes through chemotherapy and then beats it, and then he tells people after it was over. You know what I mean? That's a certain kind of a steel resolve. I'm not sure if it's healthy, you know, to go it alone. But I'm just sharing with the audience what you say in the book, right? About how you found out there was a diagnosis, and then within a couple of months, you found out that by the time he came to you, he had already beat it and had gone through chemo. That was mind blowing, you know. But I'm happy to hear that the book played a role, and it's your vulnerability, Aaron, and your willingness to be coach, for lack of a better phrase, that opened the path, really. You know what I mean? Or at least played a really, really big role. So thank you for that. And may your father's soul rest in peace. We'll come back to you more on some other stuff. Lasana, you talk about in the book again. I'm not remembering the title. Was it Freestyle Fatherhood, I think?
Freestyle Fatherhood.
Yeah. So you talk about in the book how and this was the theme that was current in everybody, how your manhood and your identity around what it means to be a strong Black man was very much rooted in hip hop, of course. And you took your cues from Chuck D and KRS-One and Poor Righteous Teachers and family members even outside your own biological father. And there's a theme here that we're finding in so many Gen X, meaning what's Gen X? Born from 1965 to 1980 or something. I should know this off the top of my head. But drug abuse in the community played a role, like a huge, huge, huge role. Tell us about that a little bit with your journey with your father.
Well, first of all, I really was honored to be invited to contribute to the anthology, April. You know how much love I have for you.
Yes.
And our brotherhood and sisterhood was just starting then, but it has blossomed over the years. If you think about, so I thought about the assignment, and the assignment was to talk about fatherhood or manhood within the context of hip hop. And unlike Shaun, I was a hip hop head from day one. But when I think about the context of my essay, it was really kind of almost in the spirit of the late, great Amiri Baraka's Blues People, right? It was, he talked about the Black American experience through the music and the culture created by blues. And I was trying to talk about our generational experience through the context of hip hop. And one of the main components of hip hop or rap music in particular is sampling. Right? You take a little piece from here, you get your drum track from this beat, from this record, you get your bass line from this record, you do this, you do some improvisation as well that comes from the jazz culture. And that's what the Freestyle Fatherhood was about, talking about how my father has had a lifelong battle with substance abuse. And so he wasn't in our home, but I always knew my father. I always engaged my father. I never had any antagonism towards my father. My mother never spoke ill of my father. So I always had a relationship with him as he was going through his battles. But I had to get these other pieces from other men, from my uncles, from people that were in hip hop culture, from people in my surrounding area. And I grew up, you know, not to say that none of us on this call or the previous guys didn't grow up in a volatile area, but I grew up in Los Angeles, California in the late 80s, early 90s at the height of Crips, Bloods, and crack, right? And so it was a very, very dangerous environment for me to navigate and negotiate. You know, I still tell people to this day, I'm the only adult male in my immediate family out of my cousins and my siblings that's never been arrested, right? It's like a virtual, you know, like a unicorn, a miracle, you know. So I come from that environment. And so it was very important from the space that I was in to have to be very creative, not just as a mechanism for idea for manhood or Black manhood or fatherhood, but for survival, right? For how do I navigate and negotiate this contentious, almost war zone that I was growing up in. And so my essay is really talking about that notion of sampling, that notion of improvisation, that notion of having to be very creative in the terms that we had to do in hip hop because of the fact that music had been taken out of the schools, because that we didn't learn music theory early on. And so that's the same thing with fatherhood. And my essay, along with the other brothers who contributed, was really within that context that you just talked about, an era of Black men post the height of the Black Power movement who were literally under assault, right? Who literally had FBI memos written saying, we want to destroy Black men, right? Literally. J. Edgar Hoover saying, won't it be better for the Black Negro or the Negro to have been an athlete or entertainer than have gotten even with the system? So this context of this assault, and so it's kind of like if you think about, for lack of a better analogy, sports analogies, if there's an outdoor sporting event, they always talk about the weather. They always talk about the conditions and the climate, and whether the conditions and the climate are going to play a role in the success of those who are on the field. That's kind of like when you talk about Black manhood. People had to navigate manhood, fatherhood, being sons, doing all these other things, husbands, providers, all within this very contentious climate of being under the assault under this post-civil rights, post-Black Power context. And that's kind of where my story was born out of. That's kind of what my essay was born out of, because that's what hip hop was born out of.
And you tied it together so beautifully, right? Like it was clear, it was crisp, and it was heartbreaking to read, right? Because this common thread of our generation, Generation X, rather, is a common thread about some of our parents dealing with substance abuse and bringing that in the home and it impacting the children. And everybody didn't come out okay. You know what I mean? Parents or the children. So I thank you for sharing, what you did. We're going to come back to you in a moment. But again, this is a reminder, be a father to your child is the foundation for this conversation. This is part 2 for those who are just now tuning in. Dion, I wanted you to close out this particular part because, you talk about, and I'm not remembering the title right now. I need to pull it up, but you talk about your journey and being a father. Do the sons bear the sins of the father? Yours was a gripping story as well, because your father dealt with a number of things and was killed at the age of 36. Am I remembering that correctly, Dion?
Yep, correct.
Yeah. And so you sort of had this thing like, okay, this is how I'm not going to be, as a father, and you didn't have a really great relationship with the mother of your child. In the beginning, you talk about how that evolved, but the energy of yours was like, I'm going to do everything the opposite of what was around me, and that that livelihood, and poured into your daughter. So tell us a little bit about that, and then tell us how things are going now, and that's going to segue us into the next part. So give us a little bit of insight, please, Dion.
So life is strange, man. I just went back, and prior to us coming on air, I just went back and reread my piece for probably the first time in maybe, I don't know, 10 years. I actually just bought a copy of the book a couple of years ago. So I have 2 copies of the book, 2 or 3 copies of the book. But I bought a copy, and I just reread my essay from back then. And, as a 27-year-old who thought at the time that I had kind of seen it all, right? Because of the things that I had went through. At that time, my daughter was 3, and I think when the book came out, I was probably the youngest and the newest father out of all of us, right? So my experience then was like, man, this is it. Like, I'm a dad. Not to know that almost 20 years later, I would have a whole world of experiences to kind of really tie things together. When I go back and read it, I some of the things still hold true, but that was the first time that I had put my thoughts about that piece of my life to paper. So when you say that it was easy to edit, like, it was easy for me to write, because I had never expressed any of those thoughts. Like, I had never, like, I wasn't in therapy at the time. I wasn't, fully in touch with who I was as a man at the time. It was just my thoughts about what I was going through. And, hip hop and fatherhood were the 2 pieces that kind of defined who I was at that time. So when I look back and I see that, honestly, there's some stuff in there now that I would be like, I might not include that, or I might not have said that way. Because the
Something
journey,
that made it to the book that you
yeah,
are questioning whether or not you should have put it in the book?
for sure.
Okay.
For sure. Or if I should have said it
That
differently.
way. Okay.
That way, right? Because if you go back and read my essay, like I'm talking about my daughter's mother, right?
I had a feeling. I would go ahead.
I'm talking about her, like, and I say her name, and you
Right.
know, I don't know where I was at that moment, but I remember calling her and be like, "Look, I'm in this book. I talk about you. I don't feel like you did da 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 da, and this is just what it is." I wouldn't do that at 45, right? I would be.
I hear you, because I had a feeling that that's what
Yeah.
you might have been talking about. I'm surprised that I'm surprised about on my part as an editor. But let me ask you this, if I may. To be fair, you say in the book that you all got to the point, you and the mother of your child got to the point where things got better, to be fair. So it's not like you dumped on her only.
Right. But that was at that moment. Things got worse after that.
Oh,
So
okay.
there was a, you know, if my daughter was 3 at that time, my daughter's mother and I, we were in court probably for 6 summers straight. Probably 3 more summers after that.
Okay.
So we didn't stop, like, you know, going back and forth to court finally until my daughter was maybe 15. So there was always still some sort of, you know, contentious emotion, feeling that was involved. And, you know, just to kind of bring it full circle, those were the things that I felt like if I had a father in my life, or a father who I was able to lean on or to have conversation with during that period, those things might have been a little bit different, right?
Yeah.
But also that helped me kind of reevaluate my relationship with my father, because in the book I talk about how my father was an alcoholic, my father was on drugs, he had a bad temper. It wasn't until I got to 40 that I really came to the understanding, like, my dad really loved me. He just didn't have the tools, right, to deal with the world that he was put in. He self-medicated and he did all of these things. He was actually fighting for his kids. He just didn't do it in the best way.
Dion, you know, this is such a common thread that I'm hearing from you all and in the previous panel, this notion about giving our fathers grace because they were doing the best that they can. You all said it here. They were, Mo, your parents were 17, and then you at 17, you know, gave birth. So at 40 or 50 something years old, you're looking back and was like, wow, we didn't know. I need to give grace because I would have needed grace. But that's just common is what I'm trying to say. Shaun, I saw you nod your head. Oh, Shaun and then Mo.
Yeah, you know, April, I think too, like, we have to give credit to a lot of things. Like, first of all, we have to give credit and gratitude, I guess. We're growing up in different times from our parents. We've studied our culture and our people. There's so many things that, you know, resonate. You know, at the time that I wrote this essay, I was reflecting on a certain part of where I was in my journey with my relationship with my father. And I guess that's the one thing that I'll just drop, is that everything's a journey. You know, my father, I reflected on a time when my father, where he was at in his journey. Since then, my mom has passed. He was the caretaker of my mom during COVID. He also, Aaron, you resonate with me. He also had a battle with colon cancer. Gracefully, he survived. He doesn't drink at all. I go to the house now in Jersey and I'm like, I need a drink. Like, could I have a drink? And it's like, it's not even an option, you know? So, you know, Tupac said, we're all made to evolve. You either evolve or you disappear. you know, the story with Black men is like we're constantly evolving, and I think that that's one thing that's often missed about brothers is that we're a special. Every person is a unique gift from God. Black men, we're unique in our own way, but the one thing that I think is often missed is that we evolve. Like we really change over time, and I think that I even look as a teacher. I look at the younger generation of Black men. I think that there's a strong generation of Black fathers that's younger than us because Black men also tend to be visual learners. We learn by what we see, you know? And I think that a lot of things like what Dion was saying, things that we've seen our fathers do, we learn we're not going to do all that. You know what I mean? Like, I don't drink or medicate when I know that I'm going to be interactive with my children. You know what I mean? Because I know that they're looking at every single thing that I do. So I don't even know if they would understand. I didn't understand why my father would withdraw when he drank. Like, so that's at the same time, but he didn't know. Someone mentioned having the tools. You know, my father, he didn't grow up with a father, you know, so he didn't learn, but he would always say, this is his thing. He would always say, you know, I drink, but I'm not drinking outside the house. Like that was his big thing. Like he would say, I don't leave the house.
Not in the street. He's not in the street doing that. Right.
He would stay in the house. Like he did evolve his father's story, and this is something that I tell young men all the time. Your one of your main missions in life is just to do something a bit better than your parents did, you know, because that's how you evolve your family lineage and you evolve the journey of your people. So you know. So I always keep talking. I forget the questions, but at the end of the day, I'm just saying like we evolve and we learn, and I think that it's really important for us to look at what our fathers did and did not do, and figure out. And sometimes we very naturally do it because we don't want to stay in that pain or trauma of how are we going to do it a step better.
Right. I think Mo, you wanted to weigh in, and then I want to go to Lasana. Lasana, I see you sitting upright. I know you want to jump in, but Mo, briefly, what did you want to share? Just
some levity, because like you said, my parents were 17 when they had me. I was 17 when I had my daughter. And when we were working on the book, I did the math and I realized my mother was 34 when I made her a grandmother. I immediately picked up the phone and I was like, Mom, I'm so sorry. So like, what, boy? She said, like, I made you a grandmother at 34. Boy, shut up. And hung up the phone. She at this point, she's like, boy, like that. Right. Just, you know,
Yeah. Things are I want to put a question out to each of you all after this, but Lasana, you wanted to weigh in? Yeah.
No, I just was thinking about the whole context about the age. Like my mother was 19 when I was born. My father was 22.
Right.
I didn't become a father until I was 47. You understand? And so, you know, Jelani Cobb just published a piece in New Yorker for Father's Day about his father, but also him being a father later in life, right? And he and I had a conversation.
I'm sorry, I would just wanted to say Jelani Cobb has an essay in the book as
Jelani
well.
Does have an essay in the book. That's where me and Jelani actually met, is through this anthology. That's how I met a lot of these brothers, through the anthology. Right. And Jelani and I talked before he wrote that piece, and he in our conversation, he was like, why do you think it's cool, or what do you think is the best part about becoming a father, you know, later in life? And I said, well, in my case, I'm a lot more patient. I said, because I know if I was 22, 23, 25, and the challenges that come with being a parent, I probably would have been a lot less patient, but also the breadth of experiences and knowledge I had was very limited at that point, right? While now, you know, I have a different context when I see certain behaviors or when I witness certain things. I have a different kind of gravitas that I wouldn't have had early. Then it makes me have that sense of grace for my parents who were 19 and 22
Right.
in Los Angeles trying to make it. You know, my dad left high school early. My mom went to dental assistant school, right? Versus the context where I have a 4-year degree, advanced degree. You see what I'm saying? And so it puts you in a different kind of space. And it's something to be said, right, about the so-called hip hop generation. But just lastly, to Shaun's point, it's not only just about the evolution piece, but what's there is this whole notion of the quote unquote not making a mistake. So like, because my father and members of my family were severe substance abusers, it's me and a couple of my cousins who we don't do anything. We don't drink, we don't get high. We're always the sober people. We're the permanent designated drivers and have been that our whole lives, right? I'm 50 now. Never drink, don't get high, right? But that's an extreme response to what we saw devastate our family, right?
Yeah.
And so that's to Shaun's point about this evolution. And now it's not I don't cast dispersions of people who drink or get high. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that through our experience, it was so traumatic. We was like, I'm good on that. I'm cool. Give me some lemonade, right? And I'm good, you know. And so that's that whole thing of that notion of wanting to do better or be better or to create a different kind of experience.
Yeah. Yeah, I think what's also coming up for me, thank you for that, Lasana, how different the world was and like how it is now. Like, it's not like small incremental change. We're talking about when the book came, when you all were writing, Facebook was just emerging. Everybody was on MySpace when you all were writing the essay. You know what I mean? Because we were working on it in 2007. It came out in 2008. Facebook was
the iPhone hadn't even.
Yeah, that's the first year of the smartphone. Yeah,
I'm saying, so like the world is so different. We highlighted the dad gang, right? And we're not acting like they're the first collective of Black men who were proud to be fathers or anything like that, or that you all are the first ones to mature and give grace or whatever. But we were a part of a movement that put it out there, you know, based on, you know, research and not even based on research, because beyond the scholarship, we knew intuitively as Black people, you know, that yes, we have some fathers who don't do well by their families, but we knew enough to know that enough of us do. So Aaron, I want to, because you are a hip hop head, and particularly Aaron, because as far as I know, you father in a different way, right? You know, you take care of people in your community. Talk to us about the difference between 2007, this conversation in 2007, and fast forward to 2025, the difference in what we as a community know about parenting, and then also the difference even in hip hop, which is a mind-blowing difference.
I think now there is a understanding and a willingness to be vulnerable, to have honest discussions. And I think in 2008, people might have discussed fatherhood. You know, as even in my essay, I note certain rappers who discuss fatherhood, but it was always from you weren't here, part of my language, but F you. You know, and it was a place of anger. And I think now there's space in the world for a more developed, a more nuanced conversation. You know, and I think it's incumbent upon our generation to share these experiences with the youth. You know, it's funny, when my father, he was ostracized by my family, and much of the way I felt about my father was what I was told by my mother and my grandmother and people around me. And I have sickle cell anemia. So I would be in a hospital and he would never come. And they would cast aspersions on him. And
because he wasn't showing up for you.
because he wasn't showing up.
Okay.
My stepmother told me that he wasn't coming because it hurt him to see me sick, and that he was going out of his mind when I was sick. I don't know this. All I know is what people in my life are telling me. When my father had colon cancer in the end, the same feelings he had as a young man, I had the same trepidations about going to see him as he had with me.
Mm-hmm.
So, and it was like, I am my father's son. I completely, I know I wasn't told a lie. I know this wasn't an excuse. I know this is what he was going through because I'm going through it now. And I think we need to share those type of stories. But I think we live in a time where there's space for these conversations. As far as hip hop, I don't know that much is
minutes. Don't even go all the way there.
Yeah.
I'm just teasing. I'm just teasing.
Yeah. I'm just saying, I really can't say that there's much growth in what the message is, in my opinion. You know, I would be interested what the other brothers think, but I don't know that the culture's evolved in a way. I mean, we can talk about anything, and some artists have, you know, being vulnerable is much more prevalent now than it's ever been in hip hop. But I don't know if the culture is any different on when we're discussing fatherhood. You know,
yeah.
Can I say something, April?
Who said that?
Me, Dion.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah.
Yes. I wanted to hop in on that point before I lost my train of thought and my ADHD kicked in. So I really have two things that I want to say. I was watching Michelle Obama's podcast a couple of days ago, and she made a point that has stuck with me. She had this conversation with her mother as her mother was kind of transitioning into the final stages of her life. And she said she was sitting on the couch, and I'll paraphrase, she was sitting on the couch and, you know, her mother just, you know, out of the blue just was like, man, that was fast. And Michelle was like, what are you talking about? And her mom was like, life. That happened fast. Mm-hmm. And that has stuck with me all week because we don't realize until we get to a certain point in our lives how fast this thing really goes. And me sitting here with you all and hearing these conversations as a 45-year-old man who met each and every one of you at the age of 28, I believe, it seems like it was just yesterday. And when we talk about how hip hop has evolved from 2008 until today, and how technology has changed and how the world is moving at what seems to be a much faster pace, right? We have AI, we have this situation in the White House, we have all of these things happening at the exact same time, which it seemingly exacerbates the point in time that we're in. And it makes it seem like things are going faster than they are. So as fathers, I think it's important that we not only appreciate that time, but also I think to kind of go with what Aaron was saying, hip hop is at a different point in time because when he talks about at that point in time, you know, of course, Be a Father to Your Child was named after the Edo G and the Bulldog song. I used to do workshops about hip hop and fatherhood, and you know, a lot of the points that I would make would be about, you know, when Beanie Siegel would talk about his dad, or Scarface would talk about his dad, or when Tretch from Naughty by Nature would say things like "Never knew my dad," MF the expletive, right? Mm-hmm. But now we see fathers who aren't involved in their kids' lives in hip hop cast aside. If you think about the way that Drake faced scrutiny when Pusha T came out and said, you've been hiding a child from us for the last 3 years. You have a child that you don't even claim, right? When we see Jay-Z going on tour with his kids, or we see, so I think that when it comes to fatherhood, I think we're at a very different place than we were 20, however many years ago, right? Because now it is seen like, okay, that generation didn't do what they were supposed to do, but us, the Jay-Z, the Nas, when Nas dropped Daughters and all of these things, like we start to see that fatherhood in hip hop is much
and
more.
Kendrick, right, Dion? Kendrick got his kids on the album and in the videos, right?
Yeah.
I'm not a Kendrick fan, so I don't know. But that's another conversation. That's another conversation for another day.
But he's a dad and he has his kids.
I don't know. I'm not a Kendrick fan, so I don't know. I have no clue. But no, I'm joking.
But we're in the age of the emotional man.
The attitude has changed. Yeah. The attitude, I believe, has changed.
Go ahead, Mo.
I think we are the first era of emotionally intelligent men, or striving to be emotionally intelligent, to be introspective. Our fathers would never have this conversation with us. Right. Like publicly, we might get it one-on-one once they had a taste, but they would open up. Because me and my father would open up like this. He was a serviceman, so heroin addict, from the service to alcoholic. And as soon as he drank, he would open up, and we were able to bond. As the PTSD was about to set in, I had about almost a year with him to get some emotional connection, but it had to be over a taste. We Tangeray tonic. Then I'd get a deep conversation. We don't have to do that. Our generation doesn't do that. And we have to show them some grace, because there really was. Someone mentioned COINTELPRO and what have you. There was a national, if not national, campaign to make sure our daddies stayed high, or they died. Like that's real.
And I'm sorry to cut you, Mo, because we're going to come to a close, and I want to see if you all want to stay for some questions as well. But I want to remind people you are watching part 2 of a very dynamic conversation on Black fatherhood, right? And all of this is within the context of course, Black fatherhood, but very specifically around the book, Be a Father to Your Child. So get it at Uncle Bobby's, get it at aalbc.com, the online African American online bookstore. Get it wherever you can, but be a father to your child. Like Dion, thank you, because I was going to say this for those who are not hip hop heads. The title of the book is based on a hit song from 1991 by Edo G and the Bulldogs, for those who don't know.
Boston hip hop.
Yeah,
that one hit, but that's all.
That was a groundbreaking song, right? Just lyrically, the beats, everything, but we were like, wow, it was just so different, to have in 91 somebody talking about the responsibilities and being a father to your child. So that's where I got the name of the book from. So for those who are just now tuning in. But guys, what is a big thing, and tell me if you got to go or not, but maybe you can stay for some of the comments. We might switch things around, Drake and Kevin, in terms of doing the comments early on before we close out. But this maturation that has happened and it's been brewing, right? We got to give shout out to the men who were emotionally aware, the men who were always in the home, the men who were the opposite and just didn't get a lot of play, right? Like let's give voice to the men who were in the homes, even if we didn't know that, even if we didn't have that example with our biological. So many of you all talked about where you did get your cues on what it meant to be a man, even if it wasn't from your biological father 100% of the time, right? It was from somebody, even if it was, watching a video, watching Chuck D, because I don't know that you get a better personification of Black manhood in so many different ways than Chuck D, right? So I just want to give some love to those who were doing that emotional work when they were like the only ones, quote unquote. You know what I mean? So I just want to definitely say that, and thank you for your maturation process here. I want to see if we have some comments or questions. Let me look at the starred ones, because we're here for y'all can stay, right? Just for a couple more minutes, because we want to hear from the people in the audience as well. So welcome to everybody who's tuning in from everywhere. all over. Oh, we forgot to say where you are sending from. Let's see. We have one here that says, the only deep emotional conversations I heard from the men in my family were when they were drinking. Mo, you just alluded to that.
Mm-hmm.
Sure. And the thing around alcohol and heroin or crack for our generation is a thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's very, very much a thing, particularly the alcohol. I don't know that that has ever really gone away. To that point, Black Men Invest. Thank you, Black Men Investing. I think you show up every week, so thank you so much. Addiction seems to be a common, I just said that. Addiction seems to be a common thread in our fatherhood traumas. Too often we try to break the cycle in silence when our best friends are struggling with the same issues. Anybody want to jump in on that one? Because that's a real statement if I ever heard one.
I just more from a family sense. But I just had a conversation with a lifelong friend of mine about how during the crack epidemic, we each had individual family members. Now, they weren't fathers, but it was a mother in my case and siblings in their cases, two of my very best friends. And we went through that and we didn't have one discussion with each other. We suffered in silence right next to each other with the same, because at that time there was a feeling of shame about, you know, the crackhead, and the last thing anybody wanted was a crackhead in their family, even though it's ridiculous for us to look at addiction in that way. But we suffered in silence. And I think a lot of people in that traumatic experience suffered in silence in our community.
Yeah. Yeah, there's so many resources. I want to put this one up. Hey, Rolando, again, thank you so much, sir. I want to, this is what I forgot to say before we close out. I have copies of the book, Be a Father. So, Rolando, I'm going to need your address. Sandy, I owe you a copy. We have some regulars that keep showing up. I want to gift the book to some of the regulars. And anybody else who is following me as of today, if we can figure out a way to do that, Drake, to find out who those people are following me on social, I want to give them a copy as well, because I definitely, I have a stash, guys. So if you all have run out, I still have my stash. But I'm really, really grateful for this conversation. There are 20. Oh, before we go, if you're watching on Twitter, switch on over. Let me shout out the guys who are in the book. This is my copy. I just need to call the names so you all know, because there are 24 and we've only highlighted just some of them. So Lauren Harris, whose idea this was, a very, very dear friend. We have an interview with Davy D in the book as well. Lasana Hotep, Freestyle Fatherhood. What is a Man? Kevin Powell is in the book as well. Lumumba Bandele, Stephen Fullwood is in the book as well. Timothy Jones, who was here for the first fatherhood conversation, right? Bakari Kitwana, Alfred A. Young Jr., Aaron, I'm going in order. Shaun, you're in here. Bill Stephanie, oh my God, the OG, the Bill Stephanie. I interviewed Talib Kweli as well in the book. James Braxton Peterson, I should say Dr. James Peterson, sorry. Adisa Banjoko is in the book. Tabidi Boone, that was another amazing story. Tabidi, what he writes about is how he was, for lack of a better phrase, a product of a woman being raped. So he tells that story and how he has overcome and continues to overcome. So shout out to Tabidi. Sadiq Ali was the only published poet in the book as well. Kevin Williams, Dion, Mo Beasley, Cheo Tayembas, who you all saw two weeks ago. I interviewed Rhymefest, who is now on the board of Ed in Chicago, the rapper Rhymefest. So he gave us an interview. That was an amazing story as well. Byron Hurt, you all have seen him on Ascending. Jelani Cobb, Dr. Jelani Cobb is in the book as well. So all of these men opened up, and I just wanted to definitely shout that out. But it's a couple of people. I'm going to find you, the regulars, so that we can get you a copy of the book. So guys, I want to give you all the last word. Really quickly, in 30 seconds, what's on your heart, what you're feeling. I want to give you all the last word as I say thank you, and we move on. I know I got to prepare for a part 3. Lasana, I'm going to start with you. What is your 30-second last word, sir?
I've been, since the publishing of the book, I've been blessed to be a father 3 times. And the words that I wrote on the page and the words that were written by the other brothers resonate with me differently. And this experience of the Be a Father to Your Child anthology is the gift that keeps on giving, but it also serves as both a mirror and a window for me on my journey through fatherhood.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much, Lasana. Stay with us before we close out. So, Mo, your 30 seconds.
I thank my teachers, Tykara, Athena, Raina, Talisa, and now Galaxy. My daughters keep teaching me and keep growing me up. And it's a wonderful thing. And I am elated to be their daddy and trying to be as long as I can to enjoy it.
You're doing an amazing job. And have done an amazing job. Well, doing, I should say, in many ways as a single father. So thank you.
And I've got to say, and making mistakes. It's funny, as a father, there's a Tracy Chapman lyric that says, done so many things wrong, I don't know if I can do right. Sometimes I feel that way as a father because we can get caught up in the mistakes that we make. So thank you, April. That humbles me. But I'm also reminded that, just keep moving forward. And learn from and grow from the mistakes if you can.
Absolutely. Shaun, thank you, Mo. Shaun?
Yes, thanks again for being here. So much resonated with me through this conversation. I was even reflecting that Tupac was 25 when he was murdered. Biggie was 24. But at the age that we were at when we looked up to them, we thought they were a lot older than that. Once again, I just want to shout out to the journey in that. We're on a consistent journey of evolution as Black men. I want to shout out to the younger generation. I have so many students where I see them on Instagram posting their love for their children, posting how much their children mean to them. There's something very powerful that happens in the evolution of how we father. And I'm going to branch off and say that there's a lot of it that comes to hip hop. I was thinking of Jay-Z and Beanie Siegel, a song that they had, Daddy, Where Have You Been? When you listen to that song, you're hearing, especially Beanie Siegel, you're hearing a certain vulnerability that came through on a hip hop song that really taught us. Like, I remember that was one of the first times that I would talk with my friends about my relationship with my father, how I felt, how my father made me feel, and I learned how their fathers made them feel just by hearing the vulnerability that was expressed in that song. Hip hop plays a very important role when we look back on it, as far as how we've learned to appreciate roles as fathers. And lastly, I just want to shout out to Brother Malcolm X. I always say that Malcolm X saved my life, and the reason for that is because he gave me an example of manhood that I wasn't getting in other places. My father is a great man and I love him. And I want to say to everyone, love your father, no matter what. But I also want to say, if your father's not there, go ask someone who's a Black man that you could look up to and that you could study. For me, Malcolm X played a very important role as a sample of manhood. So shout out to the ancestors as well. Thank you very much, April, for the platform. Peace to the brothers and peace to everybody listening.
Shaun, I thank you for rounding it up for us because the title was Blood and Bond, right? So you really emphasized the part about what it means to be a father, even if you're not biological father. You know what I mean? So thank you for putting that cap on it, Shaun. And shout out to Galaxy and Matt. We have 2 Galaxies.
What?
Shaun's your daughters are Galaxy and Math, and Mo, your granddaughter is Galaxy. I don't know what's going on with you. So thank you. Dion, I'm gonna come to you for your 30-second last word. And Aaron, after that, I'll give you the final word. But Dion, yes.
Cool. So in my 30 seconds, I'm gonna try to be as brief as possible. But I really, first and foremost, I gotta give April her flowers, because April, this book opened a path for me to not only be a better father, but to have a career. There's no Glad Dad, there's none of this stuff without this book, right? Like when this book came out, somebody approached me about doing workshops on fatherhood and hip hop. Had no idea how to do a workshop, no idea how to do a PowerPoint, nothing. But went on to talk about the importance of responsible fatherhood and responsible parenting and travel the country and do all of these really, really dope, amazing things simply because of this book. Like if there's no Be a Father to Your Child, not only am I not sitting here in this capacity, but who knows where I would be. I don't know where I would be. So April, thank you, giving you your flowers. But also I want to remind people that July is BB Moore Campbell National Minority Mental Health Awareness Month. So just advising and I want to just speak highly of the importance of going to speak with a therapist, going to talk with someone, going to just take care of your mental health, especially for the brothers. Take care of your mental health. Be sure that we are doing everything that we can do to be happy, healthy, and whole, and be here for these babies as long as possible.
That was an amazing drop right there. And I gotta say first, thank you, Dion. But I wanna receive your blessings and the flowers, and I wanna, if I can transfer them over to Lauren Harris, because this book wouldn't exist if it wasn't for my brother, and who was known by many of us here in the book. Like this was his idea that he tapped me to do. You know what I mean? So he's always laying in the cut. Lauren didn't come out to our book signings, a whole bunch of whatever, but his love for Black family and fatherhood, the amazing father that he is, and his daughter was on staff with us here at Aquila Work Songs for a minute. So that's how tight we are. But I just want to thank him as well and make sure I say publicly that I was tapped to do this. And so it's been one of the biggest honors in my life. And can I say this, Dion? I knew BB Moore Campbell. I was born in New York, lived here till I was 11, and we moved to Los Angeles. And where my family and I landed in Los Angeles, in this condo complex, her and her family lived across the walkway. I used to babysit her daughter, Maya Campbell, the actress. Wow. I used to babysit her daughter. Of course, when she was little, this was before she went into acting, and life showed up for her. But BB Moore Campbell, her husband at the time, BB Moore Campbell was the one the writer, for those who don't know, BB Moore Campbell, she was the one that flooded me with resources when I told her I was that I had got accepted to Howard University. She looked after me in the way that aunties do. Like I still have the handwritten notes when she would write out, this is who you call for this. This is who you call for that. Call me if you need anything. Oh, you want to be a writer? Let's talk. Like she was that person. She is a beautiful spirit. And I thank you for invoking her name and reminding us about the importance of mental health. So I appreciate that, Dion, very much. I wanted to give her flowers, shouting out our ancestors. You know what I mean?
Sure.
So thank you. Aaron, on that note, Mr. Producer.
Well, one, I do want to say thank you to you, April, for pushing me, as I said. Thank you to Ren also for making the book happen. And piggybacking off of Shaun, my uncle, who was there when my father wasn't, was probably the most influential male figure in my life. The one thing I would say for the community is that whether your parent is in your life or not, there's a lot of people that have resentment and carry anger towards, that parental figure for things they haven't done or for not being there. And forgiveness is really about yourself. And I know people have said that, But until you experience giving true grace and forgiveness to others, you don't realize the weight that is lifted off of you. So in the spirit of mental health, as Dion mentioned, I would say, find a way to give grace and forgiveness to those that have harmed you, because, harming is human and we all do it. So, if anything, realize that it's a gift to yourself.
Aaron, you know what? Thank you, Aaron. This is set up for part 3. I'm gonna tell you that now, because after that first episode, my one of my besties reminds us about there's a way to look at forgiveness that is kind of standard, where the thing is, one would say, forgive so that you can be better. She reminded me, because she was looking at the first episode and she had an entirely different take on this whole thing about forgiveness and grace. And it's just another way of looking at it. And I think I need to create space for that, because there's another perspective that says something different. So I'll elaborate. We'll talk about it more or whatever. But that's not to underscore anything you said, but the show is called Ascending, right? So we want to deconstruct everything. We want to deconstruct the way that we approach forgiveness and grace and what it means to have a balanced universe, right? And sometimes that looks different than how we're taught in a Western framework, in a Western ideology or a Christian framework or whatever. So I know that's a lot to drop, but I'm gonna leave it there, because that's just a setup for part 3, because we can dig even deeper for sure. So guys, stay with me for 1 second. We're going to close out, but we're going to do penance. Speaking of the Black family, I want everybody to remember that the international, guys, I just did the pennant just real quick. I want to remind everybody that the International African Arts Festival is coming up. Oh, that's next week. Oh my gosh. If you're in Brooklyn, go check out the International African Arts Festival. You've seen the co-founders here on the show, so we thank you for that. The website is right there for those who are listening and not watching. It's iaafestival.org. And Kevin, can we do the other pennant? This is one of the clients at the next one. No, not that one. I'm sorry. Well, yeah, Sasaya, but the one where we have a picture at the Whitney. We have this, the Whitney Museum here in New York is one of the clients at Aquila Work Songs. And if you all remember that famous painting, speaking of Michelle Obama, the artist is Amy Sherrill. I believe I'm pronouncing her name correctly. We all remember this, right? We remember seeing this when it came out. But this artist, Amy Sherrill, is having an exhibit at the Whitney that's going now through August 10th, 2025. And, I haven't been to the exhibit as yet. I'm going very, very soon. But if you're in New York, can get to New York, coming to New York between now and August 10th, go to the Whitney Museum and check out the Black woman artists who did this amazing work and celebrate Black life. So we definitely wanted to let you all know, because we have the best clients, from independent artists to the Whitney Museum and everybody in between. So on that note, we've done the comments. Guys, I can't even say how much I love you. There aren't enough sounds in the universe for me to articulate the love that I have for each of you, your vulnerability. I just thank you so much for being a part of the Ascending family. Yes, follow me for some behind the scenes stuff that we're going to be putting up on my social. And everybody, we will see you next Saturday. It's July 5th. No, July what? July 5th, next Saturday. We will still be here on the Marc Lamont Hill channel, Ascending, every Saturday at 11 a.m. Eastern. Thank you, everybody. Stay up.
Thank you. Thank you.